Imagine a historian who lived nearly 2,000 years ago, carefully writing down the events of his time. This man wasn't just any historian. His name was Flavius Josephus, and he witnessed the rise and fall of kingdoms, wars that reshaped nations, and moments that would echo through history. Among his many writings, there's something extraordinary. He wrote about Jesus, a figure whose life and legacy would shape the world forever. Josephus wasn't a Christian. He was born in 37 CE into a Jewish family in Jerusalem, just a few years after Jesus' crucifixion. He grew up during a time of great tension between the Jewish people and the Roman Empire. As a young man, he became a priest and later fought in the Jewish-Roman War. When the Romans captured him, Josephus managed to survive by gaining the trust of the Roman general Vespasian, who would later become emperor. Under Roman patronage, Josephus became a historian, documenting Jewish history and culture for a Roman audience. One of his most famous works, Antiquities of the Jews, written around 93 CE, provides a detailed history of the Jewish people. But what makes this book truly remarkable is that it includes 2 references to Jesus. These passages have fascinated historians for centuries because they offer an account of Jesus from someone who wasn't a follower, proving that Jesus was more than just a story told by Christians. Josephus refers to James as the brother of Jesus, also known as Christ. This simple statement confirms not only that Jesus existed, but also that he had a brother named James, a figure also mentioned in the New Testament. What makes this reference special is how matter-of-fact it is. He wasn't trying to prove anything about Jesus. He was simply documenting events as he saw them. The second reference, often called the Testimonium Flavianum, is longer and more detailed. In it, he describes Jesus as a wise man who performed amazing deeds and taught the truth to those willing to listen. He mentions that Pontius Pilate condemned Jesus to the cross and that he attracted both Jewish and Greek followers. He also notes that Jesus' followers, called Christians, didn't disappear after his death but continued to grow in number. This passage, however, has sparked intense debate. Some of its lines, like "He was the Messiah and he appeared to them alive on the 3rd day," align closely with Christian beliefs and are thought to have been added by later scribes. Still, most scholars agree that Josephus did write a core account about Jesus, which makes it one of the earliest non-Christian records of his life. What makes his writing so valuable is his neutrality. He didn't write to promote Christianity or dismiss it. Instead, he wrote to explain Jewish history to a Roman audience, which makes his account of Jesus incredibly important. Even after removing the possible later additions, the core of what he wrote provides independent confirmation of key details about Jesus' life. He also mentioned other significant figures of the time, like John the Baptist and James, further connecting his account to the New Testament. His writings show that Jesus was part of a much larger story, one that was unfolding in a time of political turmoil and cultural change. Flavius Josephus, one of the most significant historians of antiquity, left behind a legacy of writings that offer a rare glimpse into the tumultuous history of the 1st century. Among his main works, War of the Jews, De Bello Judaico, stands out as a monumental account of one of the most devastating conflicts of the ancient world, the First Jewish-Roman War, 66-73 AD. This work is more than just a history book. It is a window into the chaos, destruction, and lessons of a war that changed the course of history. Remember to join our community by subscribing to this channel. War of the Jews is a detailed, multi-volume narrative that chronicles the First Jewish-Roman War. Growing tensions between the Jewish population of Judea and the ruling Roman Empire sparked this conflict. The revolt began in 66 AD, fueled by political oppression, heavy taxation, and religious unrest. The uprising led to widespread violence, with battles raging across Judea and Galilee. The climax of the war came in 70 AD with the catastrophic siege and destruction of Jerusalem. Under the leadership of the future Emperor Titus, the Roman army brutally crushed the resistance, destroying the Second Temple, one of the most sacred sites in Judaism. This event not only marked the end of the revolt, but also signaled a turning point in Jewish history, leading to the diaspora of the Jewish people. He doesn't stop at just recounting the battles. His work is rich with vivid descriptions of the people involved, the strategies used by both sides, and the sheer horror of the war. He paints a grim picture of starvation, betrayal, and the slaughter of countless innocents. His account of the siege of Jerusalem, in particular, is a haunting depiction of a city torn apart by both internal divisions and external enemies. Writing. The War of the Jews served multiple purposes for him. First, it was a way to justify the submission of the Jewish people to Roman rule. He argued that rebellion against such a powerful empire was futile and led only to suffering and destruction. By highlighting the consequences of the war, he hoped to discourage future revolts. Second, Josephus wrote to warn others about the dangers of internal strife. He described how divisions among the Jewish factions, such as the Zealots, Sicarii, and Moderates, had weakened their resistance and contributed to their downfall. His narrative is as much a cautionary tale about unity as it is a historical account. War of the Jews is the primary historical source for understanding the First Jewish-Roman War, particularly the destruction of Jerusalem and the Second Temple in 70 AD. We would lose much of our understanding of this conflict without Josephus's detailed descriptions. His work provides invaluable insights into the political, cultural, and religious dynamics of the time. The destruction of the Second Temple was a pivotal event not only for Jewish history, but also for the broader world. It marked the beginning of a new phase in Jewish life, with the center of religious practice shifting from the temple to synagogues and rabbinic traditions. For the Romans, the war reinforced their dominance, but also exposed the challenges of ruling over diverse and rebellious provinces. Cardinal Targil explains that Jesus didn't come into the world for his own benefit. Instead, God sent him to share himself with humanity. Everything Jesus did, teaching, healing, and even sacrificing himself, was an expression of God's love. Cardinal Targil articulates this beautifully. The Father sends Jesus to give to others. This means that Jesus' life wasn't just about him. His mission was all about giving. He brought hope to the hopeless, forgiveness to the lost, and love to everyone, no matter who they were. His purpose was to give his life so others could have peace and joy. This gift didn't just stop when Jesus left the earth. It continues today through the people who follow him. Seeing life as a gift changes how we think about everything. Instead of focusing on what we can get, we start thinking about what we can give. This perspective brings joy because giving to others helps us feel connected and makes the world a better place. Jesus showed us that living this way isn't always easy. He faced challenges, rejection, and even suffering, but he stayed focused on his mission to give himself for others. By following his example, we can find strength to live in a way that reflects his love and generosity, even when it's hard. Living life as a mission means paying attention to the needs of others. It's about being generous, not just with money or things, but with our time, compassion, and understanding. It's about seeing every person we meet as someone who deserves kindness and respect. We can also think of our talents as gifts to share. If you're good at something, use it to help others. If you're great at making people laugh, brighten someone's day. If you're a good listener, be there for a friend who needs to talk. These are all ways to live out the idea of mission as a gift. Jewish Antiquities is Josephus's attempt to document the full scope of Jewish history and culture. It begins with the biblical story of creation and moves through the lives of patriarchs like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, as well as major events like the Exodus and the establishment of the Kingdom of Israel under Saul, David, and Solomon. The narrative continues beyond the biblical timeline, covering the Second Temple period and ending with the events leading up to the Jewish rebellion against Rome. He wrote the work in Greek with a focus on the educated elite of Rome. He wanted to explain Jewish history, laws, and customs in a way that non-Jews could understand and appreciate. He portrayed the Jewish people as having a long and noble history, emphasizing their contributions to religion, ethics, and governance. In doing so, he aimed to foster respect for Judaism in a Roman world often hostile to it. He relied heavily on the Hebrew scriptures, what Christians call the Old Testament, as the foundation of his narrative. He adapted these stories to appeal to his Roman audience, sometimes clarifying or expanding on events to align them with Greco-Roman cultural values. For example, Josephus emphasized the philosophical wisdom and moral teachings of the Jewish patriarchs, portraying them as figures who embodied universal virtues. But Jewish Antiquities is more than a retelling of biblical stories. It also includes post-biblical history, such as the rise of the Hasmonean dynasty, the rule of King Herod, and the political and social struggles of the Jewish people under Roman rule. These sections provide invaluable insights into Jewish life during the Second Temple period, filling in gaps left by the Bible. Jewish Antiquities is a cornerstone of ancient historical literature. It not only preserves Jewish history and culture, but also provides a valuable perspective on the complex relationship between Jews and the Roman Empire. For modern readers, Jewish Antiquities is especially significant because it contains some of the earliest non-Christian references to Jesus. These passages, despite the debate surrounding them, serve as independent confirmation of Jesus' existence and his impact on history. Are you enjoying the story? Support our channel by clicking the subscribe button. Flavius Josephus, one of the most famous historians of the ancient world, didn't just write about wars and history, he also wrote about himself. His autobiography, Vita, which means life, offers a personal account of his journey from a young Jewish priest to a military commander and, ultimately, a historian under Roman patronage. While Vita is a smaller work compared to his historical tomes, it is an invaluable resource for understanding Josephus's life, motivations, and the controversies that surrounded him. Josephus recounts his time in Galilee in Vita, where he organized and led the region's defenses against the powerful Roman army. The text describes his efforts to fortify cities, train troops, and manage internal divisions among the Jewish factions. However, Vita isn't just a story of military strategy, it's also a defense of Josephus's actions and decisions during this turbulent time. The main purpose of Vita was to clear Josephus's name. After the war, he faced accusations of treason from other Jewish leaders who claimed he had betrayed the Jewish cause by surrendering to the Romans. These accusations tarnished his reputation, and Vita was his way of fighting back. In the autobiography, he portrays himself as a pragmatic leader who made difficult decisions for the greater good. He argues that his surrender to the Romans wasn't an act of betrayal, but a calculated move to save his life and the lives of his men. According to him, his prophecy that the Roman general Vespasian would become emperor was a key factor in his survival. When Vespasian indeed rose to power, he became his advisor, gaining Roman citizenship and patronage. Vita is essentially a public defense, a response to critics who questioned Josephus's loyalty to his people. By detailing his leadership in Galilee and justifying his surrender, Josephus sought to reshape his legacy and present himself as a loyal yet realistic figure caught in an unwinnable war. Unlike Josephus's other works, such as War of the Jews or Jewish Antiquities, Vita is deeply personal. It sheds light on Josephus as a man, revealing his thoughts, ambitions, and struggles. Through Vita, readers see the human side of a figure often remembered for his historical writings. He also uses Vita to criticize his rivals, particularly a Galilean leader named John of Giscula. John and Josephus clashed over the strategy and direction of the rebellion. In Vita, he portrays John as a self-serving agitator whose actions contributed to the failure of the revolt. This rivalry is central to the narrative, as Josephus positions himself as the more rational and effective leader. Vita is both a historical document and a piece of self-promotion. Josephus's efforts to defend his reputation and criticize his rivals make it clear that he was deeply concerned about how history would remember him. While his critics accused him of opportunism, his survival and eventual role as a Roman historian ensured that his perspective would shape how future generations understood the Jewish-Roman War. Jesus' mission, as beautifully described by Cardinal Tagle, reminds us that we are not here to simply take, but to offer ourselves as gifts to others. Every act of kindness, no matter how small, becomes a reflection of the boundless love that Jesus showed to the world. If you're enjoying this story, consider showing your support by clicking the Super Thanks button below. If you believe in spreading hope, kindness, and the power of giving, your contribution is helping us continue creating content that touches lives. This perspective challenges us to live intentionally, to see each moment as an opportunity to brighten someone else's day, and to recognize that our greatest strength lies in generosity. It is not always easy, but it is always worthwhile. In giving ourselves, we discover a life of purpose, connection, and true joy. Every time we step outside ourselves to help someone else, whether through a kind word, a helping hand, or a listening ear, we echo the mission that Jesus lived. He lived a life of service because love requires us to care for each other. This example reminds us that every gesture, big or small, can make a difference. This lifestyle extends beyond exceptional deeds or instances of significant sacrifice. It's found in the everyday, the way we show patience to a friend, forgive a mistake, or offer support to someone in need. These seemingly simple choices build a life centered on sharing, where giving becomes second nature and the heart of our existence. Thanks for watching. Join our community by subscribing to this channel. Until the next video.